Hey guys, how you doing today? I'm having one of these days where my hair is just not cooperating. See this little winger right back here? You know, you ever one of those? I feel like I'm about to take flight, like at any minute. Oh well, what can be done? I think today I'd really like to talk about. I'd like to rediscuss and talk about what's going on with the pandemic here in Canada, especially. I live in Toronto. And our leader, Premier Doug Ford, is reopening the economy. This is completely arrogant and absolutely stupid, and really, really shows you exactly the level of arrogance that exists in the Neoliberal. How about that? The Neoliberal. I can't stop saying it now. The neoliberal mindset, the level of arrogance that exists within the neoliberal mindset, the idea that a force of nature has come through. In theological terms, God has asserted himself. And we, here in Canada, federally, we responded to it pretty rationally. Provincially, it sort of depends on your province. And at first it looked like the Ford administration was responding to it rationally, but I think the keystone moment for the Ford administration was when the reopen the economy protests happened. You know, like 40 people showed up, and it got huge media coverage. You know, mass protests happen with thousands and thousands of people, and it receives no media commentary whatsoever. But the reopen the economy people, oh, well, there's 40 people who wanted to reopen the economy, so that's super huge national news. And of course, Doug Ford, he calls them a group of yahoos. That's the word he chose to use. He called them yahoos, and then immediately started to reopen the economy. So immediately started to move forward with the reopening of the economy, making him the ultimate Yahoo, in my view, because the neoliberal arrogance that we have control of the situation, right? That's the myth that, oh, well, it's plateaued, right? So, well, it's plateaued, so this is as bad as it's ever going to get, right? Yeah, right. This is as bad as it's ever going to get. We know historically that there is always a second wave in a pandemic. There has been no pandemic in modern history that does not have a second wave, so we know that we are going to have a second wave. Reopening the economy means that it's going to be worse. It's very easy to believe that. So first of all, we know that the disease is transmitted more effectively indoors. So if you open up like your Value Villages and your Walmarts and your you know, all your restaurants and all this kind of stuff, well, those are all indoors. People are going to be indoors. It's very difficult to believe that, you know, if somebody has the COVID-19 virus, well, they're going to go through and they're going to riffle through all the stuff in a Value Village, right? They're going to go and they're going to riffle through all the stuff in your retail establishments. Your kids are going to run around and they're going to just touch whatever they want to touch, and they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And then grandma's going to come through and do the same thing. And so it's going to spread the disease. The reason why the neoliberals are so gung-ho is because they understand that Christmas is coming. This is the big linchpin for capitalism, right? That right around now is when retailers begin to talk about and think about Christmas. Seriously. We're only in June now, and if you are a manager, an owner, or an assistant manager like I am, I'm an assistant manager of a toy store on leave because of the pandemic. And right now is when we begin to think about what's going on for Christmas. Because Christmas is neoliberal capitalism generally, it is its religious holiday. Christianity lost that religious holiday. That was the birth of their Savior, Jesus Christ. No one in the society gives a shit about that anymore, least of all the Christians. The Christmas is not a Christian holiday. It hasn't been for quite some time. It is a capitalist holiday. And everything in the capitalist structure is geared towards Christmas. This is why it's so bloody important that they reopen the economy, because they need to have people ready for Christmas. They need to have people trained. They need to have stable business that's open and ready to go for Christmas. Because if they don't, if Christmas is canceled, then that's going to be an absolute firestorm of a disaster for the capitalist structure, right? That if we were to act the same way that every other creature does over the Christmas season, which is to hunker down, to just be with the people who are around you, then it would absolutely collapse the capitalist system. So capitalism demands that there's this frantic purchasing that happens, and it's all based around this idea that you don't get to see each other throughout the whole year, and so let's replace the time capitalism has forced you to sacrifice with objects that you give one another as tokens of your love, right? I saw that all the time when I working in the toy store. I see it all the time, right? You have grandparents who literally, like, they live in the same city, but they don't actually see their grandchildren except on Christmas, or maybe Easter, but they see them maybe 4 or 5 times a year total. And so they come in, they buy the most expensive thing I sell them, and they leave. And that's how they replace the time they've lost, or they attempt to. And I see it constantly. Isn't that right, Mr. Poops? Let's pause for a moment. Say hello to Mr. Poops. Mr. Milo. Oh, Mr. Milo's leaving. Okay. And oh, he wants a little bit of peanut butter, so I'm going to oblige. I'm going to be honest, guys. If you ever see me stand up in the middle of these things, and you see me do something, it's probably me just getting peanut butter for my dog. So Christmas. Christmas is the most important time of year for capitalist culture. It's their most holy religious holiday. It's a time where we all bow in fealty towards the capitalist class and sell back our hard-earned wages to them. So it's absolutely important that the neoliberals can get things back up and running for Christmas. This is what they care about. They care about getting things back up and running for Christmas. So they reopen the economy. They get things moving again, right? They get things going. But this is arrogance. This is a high level of arrogance, because they believe, well, we can negotiate with the forces of nature. We've never actually done that, right? They don't care about climate change. They certainly won't care about this. They don't care that they're putting people's lives at risk. They don't care about any of that. They care about making money for themselves. That's what they care about. The result of this, and the great irony of this, is that if you look at the timeline, what's probably going to happen is that because they're reopening the economy now, it's going to spread the virus around. The virus is going to be spread around quickly, and we're going to experience a second wave. The second wave is going to come upon us very quickly, right? If you take a look, there's this really great graph that exists on the internet that shows the Spanish influenza. And what I think is really important about that particular graph is it showed you that when the second wave happened, it happened almost instantaneously. The line just goes, and it didn't matter if some places had almost completely eliminated the Spanish influenza, and then all at once it was like this huge spike. And if we reopen the economy, what we are setting ourselves up for is to experience this gigantic second wave just in time for Christmas. And so in this way, the neoliberals are setting themselves up. The capitalists are setting themselves up for a complete and total catastrophe. That if they had have just played ball, and if they had have just acknowledged that nature is a more powerful force than they are, which they still don't believe, they don't acknowledge that, then perhaps they could have made it through, and then perhaps we could have opened for Christmas. Perhaps by then this whole situation would have resolved itself, but that's not going to happen. Instead, we're plowing into a gigantic second wave, right? If you reopen your economies, we have the data, we have the history, like we know how this works. If you reopen your economy, you're going to experience a more serious second wave. And that's exactly what we're doing. And it's complete and utter arrogance. There's no other word to describe it. The ridiculous stupidity of such a decision to just allow people, and like frankly the stupid ways that we are trying to deal with this, to allow people back into retail environments. Oh, well, we'll have reduced numbers. As if the virus can't be spread simply by putting it on a surface, right? Like, not every person is going to walk into a retail establishment and immediately put on and immediately use hand sanitizer. They're not going to come in wearing gloves. They're not going to come in wearing masks, right? Especially as we trick ourselves, and our leadership tricks itself into believing that we have this under control, which we do not. We do not have this under control, especially if we're saying stupid things like, let's reopen the economy. So it goes back to that kind of capitalist way of thinking that I think about all the time, which is that capitalism is a system that's designed to destroy itself, right? A capitalist will sell you the rope to hang him. And that's how capitalism is structured, by design. And if we permit such a system to continue existing, then we're going to see faster and faster collapses. We're going to see more and more devastating consequences. The longer we attempt to hold on to this system that literally refuses to reform itself and refuses to acknowledge that the world we live on is a more powerful force than it. This is the great arrogance of capitalism and neoliberalism in general, which is that it believes that we are the ones who are powerful. The earth is far more powerful than we are. This pandemic is the lowest level thing that it can throw at us. It doesn't get lower than this, right? If it was less serious than this, then it would just be a flu, which is pretty regular. So all it's done is gone from like the basement of like zero, like level zero, like we believe we have this in hand. Oh yeah, there are flus, people get sick, you know, it happens. That's a normal thing. And all it did is crank it up by 1. This isn't a 10. We're not at an 11 or a 12. Like we're at a 1. And it can get a lot worse than this, and it will get a lot worse than this. And if we continue to tie ourselves to a system that collapses literally the second any kind of thing comes through, then we're going to be finding ourselves scrambling to build institutions all the time. We're not going to be taking seriously the demands of the earth at all. And we are going to constantly be finding ourselves in this desperate scramble to try to figure out what's going on. Because capitalism is not taking this seriously. Just take a look at how people like Jason Kenney, Brian Pallister, Doug Ford certainly, are handling this, right? The reopen the economy riff. And meanwhile, Justin Trudeau, he doesn't say reopen the economy, but he's not fighting against it. So he's in favor of the reopening of the economy because it is his goal as a neoliberal capitalist to hand the society back over to the neoliberals. That he has conceded that neoliberal capitalism failed during this period of time. He understood that and put in the appropriate measures, i.e. a basic income, to deal with it during the crisis. But he is just as arrogant as the other, as the conservatives, because his arrogance is that, oh, this will be a temporary thing, we'll call it, this will be over by this particular date, and in fact we can reopen the economy and it will be over. You do not get to say when this is over. That's one of the most arrogant things about this whole situation, is that it really does seem like North America, America and Canada just decided the pandemic is over. We just said, yeah, okay, so it's not gone, it's still here. The pandemic is currently happening, and we're going to plow right into a second wave. But you know what? I got to get my hair cut. It's shocking arrogance on a really high level, and we're going to be smacked right back down into our corner. All of this work where we're reopening the economy, all of the work that people who have actually put themselves into isolation is absolutely for nothing. This reopen the economy riff is going to be revealed as a total fraud, and it's going to be revealed as a total fraud very quickly. You take a look at the protests that are happening through the United States, and, whoa, you think the pandemic is just going to pause itself? You think that all those people getting out into open spaces, you think that when a cop grabs a guy and throws him down to the ground, there isn't a transfer moment? So the pandemic is absolutely looming on us, and it's going to be accelerated and exacerbated by the arrogance of neoliberal capitalists who care more about making money for themselves and opening everything up for Christmas than they do about basic facts or human life. This is going to blow up in their faces. The second wave of the pandemic is going to arrive just in time for Christmas. 2020 is going to be the year where Christmas was canceled. This is a bad year, guys. This is not a good year. Every step of the way, almost week by week, there has been some kind of new crisis that has been on an existential level. The pandemic, the rebellion, murder wasps, World War III, just absolutely to the point now where people are joking like, oh man, when are the aliens going to land? Like, oh, is this the year that the Yellowstone National Park volcano blows up finally? 2020 is the year Christmas will be canceled. And it will happen just as the neoliberals are saying we have complete control of this. Because that's how things work. The moment the neoliberals claim victory and say, oh yeah, we can reopen the economy and go back to business as normal, put people back to work into wage slavery, that's when the pandemic is going to spike. And say directly to them, look what your arrogance has brought you. Okay, I think that's the end of this video. good luck out there, guys. If the protest comes your way, make sure you join it. It's all we can do. Good luck.